right, it's once again that time. You guessed it. It is, in fact, time for another Fix It Again episode. Behind us here, we have a 47RE that a customer sent down. Was a previous build done by another shop, but has supposed to have some good parts in it. As you can see, I already have the valve body out of it because I sent that back off to Garen for a cut and clean. So luckily, it did already have a Garen valve body in it. Came with a Garen converter, sent that off for a cut and clean as well. We're going to do a restall with it too because this customer was towing heavy with a 17 minus 250. So what that is that is a loose stall converter. 17 minus 250 is something that I would really only sell for like drag racing applications. Occasionally there's some street stuff that needs it, and it does still drive pretty nice on the street, but it is absolutely nothing that you should ever be towing with by any stretch of the imagination. We only do stock stall, or similar to stock stall is about the loosest that I like to go for anything that's towing, especially if it's towing any amount of weight at all. So we are going to go through this one, fix it up. It got hot. It's tore up, apparently wouldn't move, so we're going to go through, see exactly what happened with it, and see what parts are in it, what we can salvage, and basically see if we can put this one back together as a nice new Logan built unit, and try to save the customer some money while doing so. So let's dive into it and see what we got here. Our intermediate shaft here is showing some pretty obvious signs of heat. That is not common. Should not look like that. Luckily, I think I can save it. I can't really feel any of that. There's just a very slight little bit amount there, but I think I'll be able to resurface that and save it. Obviously, definitely been hot, so that is a lubrication issue. When you get these things too hot, the fluid breaks down. It doesn't lubricate properly. See a little chunk of metal there, or aluminum, one or the other? I believe it's aluminum. I'm going to say that this intermediate shaft probably most likely seized to the piston support, and it's got a hard spot in it when I try to turn it. So I'm going to guess that this overdrive piston support is all chewed up in here, and that is because the oil from your cooler comes in and directly lubricates the intermediate shaft, the overdrive section, all of your planetary gears, all gets lubricated from the rear cooler line here. So when your fluid gets too hot, cooler can't do its job, it breaks down and you lose your protection, you lose your capacity to, basically the fluid breaks down, it no longer is doing its job, it gets too thin, it doesn't lubricate properly, and we tear up a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to assume overdrive piston support's probably going to be bad. I wouldn't be surprised if the low reverse drum is bad. Sometimes it even gets the band with it. Hopefully for this customer's sake it's not too bad, but this is why fluid temp is so important. And then we can see the same heat transferred into the sun gear here. You can see that bushing is in bad shape. That bushing is going to have to be replaced. The sun gear is probably okay, but since we can replace it, why wouldn't we? So we're probably going to replace that. You can see the heat in the bearing, and you can even see a little bit of the heat transferred over to the actual planetary gear itself. Luckily, this thing looks to be okay. Just a little bit of heat discoloring in it, but this is probably going to be all right. Probably leave it up to the customer if they want me to change it out or not, but I think it'll be okay. And then output shaft looks good. You can see some more material in there. I believe that is aluminum. That's probably going to be from the overdrive piston support where it was getting chewed up. It does have a Sonex 23 spline output shaft as well, and that's not heat in it. That's just a shadow. So output shaft and all that looks good. As far as clutches go, overdrive brakes, they actually look like they're in really good shape, so that seemed to be very happy there. The overdrive directs look perfect, so far the overdrive section, everything was set up correctly in this. There was no issues here. It's just you can't get them that hot. This is bad, boys. The deeper we dive, the worse this poor thing keeps getting. That front planetary is in bad shape. I mean, look at the pin hanging out of it. That thing is black, torched. I am nervous to see what this thing looks like when we get it apart. The forward clutches here are in terrible shape. Look at all that heat that is transferred over into that forward apply piston. I mean, that thing is nasty. The forwards are, you can still move them. So it wasn't like, you know, this is a line pressure related deal. This is just heat. I mean, look at that. That 3-tab selective washer is just ground into the input shaft. So, man, I'm worried that we're going to have some parts on this one that we're not going to be able to salvage. I mean, there's even some heat in the end of the input shaft there. If you can see, it's not terrible, but this thing has heat everywhere. Directs, I can already tell, have some heat in them, but man, my big concern is that gear set there. If I had to guess, I'm going to say this is going to be hard to get apart, and we're probably not going to be able to save that intermediate shaft, and we definitely are not saving that front analyst ring gear or the front planetary. Man, this is a bad one. I can't even get the sun shell off of the front planetary. It is all completely welded up. The intermediate shaft, it's trashed. I mean, that thing is just absolutely heat torched. You can see the overdrive piston support is just blown apart. Surprisingly, the intermediate still spins in here, but I can't get the overdrive piston off of it because it is just welded itself to it, as far as like it's just created a groove in there. So this thing is just absolutely junk. It is in bad shape. The rear planetary was eating itself up. It's just, it's not good, boys. And the look at that plastic washer and the way that that overdrive piston support is just smashed. I mean, that thing is just seeing intense heat. So that's actually going to be difficult to get that apart. So I'm going to see if I can actually just maybe pull the whole section out and see what the band looks like. Oh my God, this thing is bad. Bad. The one-way roller clutch, aka Sprag, is just destroyed. Look at the heat in that thing, man. This poor thing has been through it. I think the case is going to be okay. The Sprag race isn't loose in the case, so I think that we got really lucky on that. But overall damage report so far, that intermediate shaft trashed, overdrive piston support trashed. Low reverse drum is junk because half of it is still hanging in the Sprag in there. You know, surprisingly, the low reverse band still looks great. Looks excellent. So this wasn't anybody's fault as far as, you know, a builder setup or anything. This thing just saw incredibly too much heat, and that's because the customer just didn't know. He just didn't know that the 17 minus 250 was absolutely not a converter you tow with. By the time it showed him any issue, it was just done. So I'm going to finish getting this thing apart and contact the customer and tell them the bad news and go through this thing and see what it looks like. Obviously going to refresh it all anyways. I'll show you the clutches and the forwards and the directs. But yeah, it's a bad one. It's a victim to heat. Just don't do this. Save yourself some heartache. Monitor your trans temps and make sure that if you're not getting the transmission from me, or you're not buying a DIY kit from me, if you're having someone else build your transmission, or if you're building it yourself, make sure that you choose the correct converter for your application. Make sure you have a good cooler. Make sure you have a well-built, well-rounded setup like the stuff that I sell, so that way you don't end up in this situation where, unfortunately, you know, this is going to be thousands of dollars to fix. So I don't want to see people doing that. I hate seeing people spend money twice, especially when something that, you know, they had a good transmission here. There was nothing wrong with it. It was built well. It just was way too hot. Forward clutch pack's actually in good shape. Everything looked really nice in it. Obviously, the heat that was there was from the torching, from the lack of lube that made it all the way up to the input shaft. And the direct clutches actually look awesome too. Even with this thin little reaction plate that I would personally never run, they still look really good. You can see one of the top ones there starting to get a little heat in it. But man, beautiful looking clutch pack setup. Second gear band looks excellent on this thing. So hats off to the builder. He did a nice job. Just can't contend with hot transmission fluid. All finished up and all back together. We got this one finished out in a pumpkin orange that the customer requested. This customer decided to go with the ARP hardware kit, which is a super nice upgrade when you're got a nice custom paint job unit. It's got the overdrive housing bolts. It's got transfer case nuts. These are all 12-point stainless ARP. Got the pan stud kit. Got the trans mount bolts, the bell housing bolts. It's got one of my shifter cable brackets on it and my TV adjuster kit to finish this thing out to a really good looking piece. Honestly, I love this color. I think that this is one of the better looking transmissions that I've done in a long time. So that will be a wrap on this episode of Fix It Again. This one's ready to go back to the customer in Wisconsin. He's actually on his way here to pick it up as I'm filming this. So be happy to get his reaction and see what he thinks about it. As always, guys, I appreciate you watching these videos. Keep commenting on them, keep liking them, keep sharing them with your buddies. It really helps grow the channel and helps me get out there to more people so I can fix more transmissions again. So if you guys are liking this stuff, drop a comment below. If there's something that you specifically would like to see me cover that I haven't been covering on these transmission type stuff, drop a comment, let me know. Be happy to help. Thanks, guys. Catch you on the next one.